marriage and they part ways and they become empty nesters. And they're like, okay, we did the kid thing together. So now we can part ways, have a happy rest of your life type thing.
We stuck it out until the kids moved out and peace out.
If you're in one of those times where you just feel like you're having to stick it out, one, it sucks. Can we just, it sucks when you're in those times, but it can be productive.
I mean, it's hard to hear that when you're in the middle of some shitty situation, but it's those situations that are going to make you, we've all heard it before. Stick it out. It'll make you tougher and stronger in the end. But it's kind of a cliche saying because it's true.
Welcome back, or welcome to the Conscious Investor Podcast, the show where we talk about health, mindset, and wealth building strategies. I'm your host, Julie Holly, and I'm really excited. And I think you will be too, Conscious Investor, because back in the house today is Super Rad Steve. We're going to talk about that reel that kind of set me off a little bit. And we're going to just unpack what that reel was. Steve doesn't even have an idea of what it was that set me off. So you guys get to get the authentic, no pre-conversation. We're just going to jump on in. But before we do, I have something super exciting to share with you. Today goes live for the very first time ever, the very first ever wish fulfillment weekend experience. So I have booked a gorgeous beach house in Florida for February 7th, 8th, and 9th. And this is limited and reserved to 10 people. And today is the very first day that it is going live to the world. Some seats have already been taken up. But this is going to be an event that you are not going to want to miss out. The wish fulfillment experience that I hosted for one day at my house was so powerful and impacted people's lives. It was the right size. That one was 6 people. This one will be 10 people because we have a whole weekend that we can work together. And what I really enjoyed about it is that the participants, I was able to work with them one-on-one at different times with everybody. But then I was also, there's a lot of sharing, collaborative. It was just such a really powerful experience for everyone to unpack what it is that they are after, to really figure out why they're after it, to create that belief system, to create the blueprint, and to have that action. There's going to be more involved with the weekend experience because we will have more time. And trust me, if we would have had more time in that one day, we would have done a lot more. But this is an experience, right? So it's not just about sitting around talking. We're actually going to be doing things. We're going to be doing some things on the beach because we're going to walk out the back door to the beach. And we're going to do some really cool things. If you want more information, please shoot me an email, julie@julieholly.com. We may have a link in the show notes by the time this goes live. But if we don't, just put wish fulfillment experience in the subject line and let me know that you're interested. Again, it's only 10 people. So I'm not trying to blow this out into a big deal. I just really want to have the right people there so we can have a really powerful experience. Now, I just want to give a caveat. I am getting over COVID right now, so I apologize. Anything I'm recording today is, through some sniffles, through some foggy brain and such, but we're going to totally get through it. But if I stumble over my words a little bit, well, we know that I do that, but it's probably possible that it could happen a little bit more than usual. All right, back in the house, Super Rad Steve. For you new listener, that is my husband.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hello.
Yes. So
I'm back. It hasn't been such a big, long gap since time before last.
Yeah.
It's been 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Before that is like a year.
It has been a little bit longer than that. And we were going to record this episode right after the other one. And I think we had something we had to go do with our kids and we scooted, and he was almost going to not do this podcast episode for some reason. So anyway.
Well, after the last one, I had to let my back recuperate because sitting on this stool is not fun.
Yeah. So we're not really in the most comfortable situation. We're both on
No, we're like intertwined here to sit on these two stools so we can both be in the frame.
in the frame. So the studio is not equipped for recording with two people. So, everyone listening and watching, super shout out to Enrique, our amazing podcast producer, for just being able to work with this type of material. So rad. So you showed me this reel. We talked about the funny one on the last podcast episode that you were on, and we're not going to go back into that funny one. But if you want to hear about that, go listen to maybe like 5 episodes ago and listen to the episode with Super Rad Steve. We discussed that, and then we alluded to what we're going to talk about today. So
yeah, the one we talked about the other day was more funny.
It was funny
in the conversation that ensued from it, but this one, it definitely got you a bit fired up.
It did.
Got a little spicy.
Yeah. I did get a little bit spicy. It definitely ruffled my feathers. And I thought it was interesting. We watched it again before recording this. And I think it's really interesting that it did get me all ruffled up. And
I think I know what is making you irritated with it.
Oh, okay. This is good. Okay. So what is it that you think? And you weren't looking at my notes, were you? Because I did write down some things for myself.
Oh, I actually didn't know your notes were sitting there.
Oh, okay, good.
No,
Here, there
I
are my
wasn't.
notes.
I was not looking.
Okay. So what do you think it was that got me,
I don't want to lead you in the...
Well, my notes will prove. The notes will prove if I'm being honest or not.
Well, I think the listener needs some context first as to what this was about. And it's this grizzled older man who is apparently very wise, and he's being interviewed by not like a kid, but somebody definitely younger than he.
Who has a British accent, so he's automatically very wise and smart.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, he has some accent.
All right.
Yeah.
And so the older guy is explaining, what was it, like what he wishes women understood about men.
Yes.
Which, I mean, that's a pretty broad category, but he said specifically that men have so much more going on through their heads than they let on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. I mean, working with guys, I mean, most of them, they kind of, we tend to keep things bottled up inside, right? So I completely agree with what he's saying. Like, there's so much more going on if we're thinking at all. But what I think made you upset was everything he was saying regarding not saying it. if that makes sense. So, like, what he was saying is men tend to keep it inside.
Okay.
And the reasons why men tend to keep it inside is what made you mad, because everything was like fear-based. Everything was like, I'm afraid of what the response will be if I say this. So I'm just going to hold it in. Am I right?
Wow. You guys, that's 20 years in the making. He's been working 20 years to be able to be inside my mind. So
it works every now and then too.
Yeah, it does. That's definitely a major facet of what was frustrating to me with what he was saying. Why do you think that was frustrating to me? Just out of curiosity.
Well, one, I mean, you are like a lot of folks where you're kind of a verbal processor. Like, you sort of think as you speak, for lack of a better explanation. Like, part of thinking about what you're processing comes from saying it out loud. Maybe bouncing ideas off people, seeing what the feedback is. So hearing what this guy, and I think it is accurate for I think it's accurate for more men than it is for women. So I think it's kind of like counterintuitive to you, because it's like the exact opposite of what you do. But as a guy who has a tendency to keep it inside and process it before I let it out, it's frustrating for you.
That right there is actually a huge point of tension in our relationship. I will tell you and ask you, and it will be a demand. a lot of times. Like,
well, I mean,
I can't read your mind. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah. Anytime we're in a car for more than 3 minutes and I'm quiet, it's always
That
like,
is such an
what are you thinking? What's on your mind? What are you thinking about?
Hold on.
And I shouldn't say it like that, but
that's a little bit of an exaggeration. It's more if we're in I am getting a little defensive. I want to be mindful for the sake of the conversation. Like, it's more when we're in conversation and we're talking about something important. That's usually when I'm asking. I don't usually ask you in the car what's going on in your head. It's usually we're having a meaningful conversation and maybe the stakes are a little bit high. Think about crucial conversations. Emotions are high, stakes are high, and you tend to get quiet.
I think there's a lot, like, for the ladies out there listening, guys tend to be a little more, I don't know, simple. Like maybe we pride ourselves on being simple creatures, but sometimes we need, I shouldn't, like, it's not just guys, so I shouldn't say reference this and frame it with men. It's like a lot of people just need more time to sort of process whatever it is they're thinking about. It's like, in order to say something, you have to be able to articulate it. And a lot of times it's sort of figuring out like what it is that's, what's brewing, like, is there something that bothered me? Well, why did it bother me? Like we could just start spewing, but I don't know. I like to know what I have to say before I say it.
But what if what you have to say shifts and changes because you're learning more about, like, you're connecting all the pieces all at once, and so what you may have to say initially is going to change in that interim, in that period.
Yeah. I mean, over the
just
years,
throwing that out.
I think I've come a long ways in like recognizing the value in saying things, like in the whole idea of bouncing ideas off each other. Because if you just keep the idea in your head, you're only bouncing it off yourself, and that's not going to go very far. But two heads are better than one. So get it out there, even though you might not totally know what it is you're trying to say.
So in doing that, though, that also requires, there's a prerequisite, perhaps, and I'm going to sound hypocritical when I talk about this reel and the part that set me off. And I'm aware of that. So, but, and I'm interrupting myself with my foggy brain, and now maybe I don't remember where I'm going with this.
I think maybe we're both foggy right
now. No, but I think that there's a lot. The prerequisite is that it's safe for me to be able to say this. It's safe for me to think aloud. Now, that might be where you have to start from operating. And then there are people that are wired more like me, where it's safe or not, I just know I need to say this, and I know I need to start playing with this. It's almost like Play-Doh in live action. Like the words are actually getting shaped through the conversation, and the thought is taking form. So would you agree that there has to be like some level of, I feel safe or comfort for you to do that?
Yeah. I mean, why, like this guy in this video, he's talking about holding it in, like his thoughts, whatever he's thinking through, because he does not feel safe putting it out there. Like that's the whole point of what he's saying. Like, I guess if men felt more safe, like, I hate using that. It's such a buzzword, like feeling safe, but yeah, there's a level of safety or lack of comfort, might be a better way of putting it, that just like we're afraid of saying something and it's going to come back and have our words twisted around, or that's not what we meant, or having a meaning assigned to something that we haven't quite figured out yet. Okay. That might not be accurate. How's that for roundabout?
I think that was actually really insightful. And I want to go down the rabbit hole, but I also want to bring the conscious investor in and you in as well, because you're hitting on all of it. But I'm going to be really like deliberate, because I actually wrote down. Look,
you're showing me your notes now?
I wrote down the actual things, the phrases that this person said that really triggered me. There are 10,000 more things going on in a man's head than you know about.
Yeah.
And I think that, so, okay, I can put gender aside. Like, I understand it was two men having a conversation, And so I can be like, of course, they're talking to men, that's their audience. And so they're going to frame it that way. I don't get all ruffled over, oh, they're saying only men, but I do want to just, put it out there that I think that is actually a man's thing in general, but I think it can't be general to people. But he says, he follows that by saying he's carrying burdens. He's carrying burdens that you don't know about all alone. And he's dealing with it alone. And if I communicate about it, or if he communicates about it, he's scared he's going to get shot down.
Yeah.
And so, I mean,
I've got lots to say about that.
I do too. It really, so, yeah, it was really frustrating to me. Yeah, you go ahead, because maybe it will shift me from a posture of frustration to a deeper understanding, perhaps.
From defensiveness to acceptance.
I'm not defensive.
I'm gonna look
I
at
would
your
definitely
notes
say
here.
I'm a little annoyed.
So he's dealing with it all alone. Is like he's referencing, like he's speaking to men. This applies to, everybody, but dealing with it all alone. As the way he says that, he is basically asking for sympathy. It's like, we're dealing with this all alone. There's nobody to turn to. It's like, well, if you don't have anybody to turn to, like, think about your group of friends. Like, because if you don't have friends that you can talk to about that stuff, are they really friends? Or are they more, people of convenience? So I think that's something really important to talk to right there. Is the other thing.
There's a mic drop on that one.
The other is, like, if these men are married and they're carrying all this alone, well, they really need to consider their marriage, their relationship, because if they don't feel safe to, kind of speak the inner workings of their heart and their burdens and whatnot, there's some other stuff at play that needs to be dealt with too. Like, that's just plain and simple. So it's all about, like, trying to get to sympathy or, like, a high five for doing it alone. Like, you get no high five for handling things alone. Like, it's fear. It's being scared, not wanting to put it out there. So if you have no one to talk to, well, how are you in the relationships that you have? And how did those other people that you might be in relationship with, how do they respond to you? What's your interaction?
Honey, whoa.
I could go off on this. So
okay. So I'm glad that you went first on this, because I didn't know what you were going to say. And honestly,
I didn't know what I was going to say either.
This is so much growth for you. So, and honestly, I thought you were going to defend the guy. I thought you saved that reel. Okay, so this is real time, right? Conscious investor.
We intentionally did not talk about this ahead of time, so it could be live, raw, and unfiltered right here.
Well, but what's interesting is that you saved that reel for some reason, and then you showed me that reel for some reason, and it triggered me for the same reason that it's like, for all the reasons that you're articulating right now. But because you saved that in that process, I thought that I made an assumption. I broke one of the 4 agreements. I made an assumption that actually resonated with you, and that was a reflection of your posture and how you felt internally, and how men in general. And I think a lot of men do feel like that.
It did resonate with me. Okay. Like, it did. But at the same time, I think, I'm going to put you in the hot seat here.
Okay. No.
So, like, you being triggered by that is the very reason a lot of men don't want to put it out there, because they're afraid of what's going to come back at them.
So what came back at you?
Well, you being triggered, like, no, this guy's dumb. He doesn't know what he's talking about. That's not what you said, but that's, it was basically discounting what he said. Right?
I don't know that.
You can edit this part later.
Oh, no, we're not editing any of this.
But that's why a lot of people, and I'm going to speak to men because I'm part of that club, but a lot of people don't want to put their thoughts, ideas, whatever out there. So they carry those burdens alone, deal with everything alone, because they are afraid of what's going to come back at them, like struggling with your job, and you say that to your spouse, and she comes back with, well, get a different job. It's basically unhelpful stuff. It's like, okay, well, that's not
He's
helpful.
heard
That's
these
not what I
things
was going
in our
for.
early marriage. I think that's why you can say that so easily.
Well, I did have a boss that absolutely sucked. That was a long time ago, but
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like talking about that stuff was hard. Like I had not done any of the like work to even understand myself to articulate that. So our, at least for me, my default mode is to just go into withdraw, hold it all in, hold my cards real close, and try to figure it out so I don't get ridiculed or embarrassed or insert negative feeling here.
Okay. Let's go back down memory lane, because we definitely have both grown so much over, the last several years. And when I think about the past, and I think about, I always call it Denver days, because that was like a double-edged sword in our life and in our marriage. And I mean, like it was really rough. So like if you're listening to this and you're feeling, financially, like your finances are a train wreck by no fault of your own, if you're feeling like your relationships, our whole life was just like imploding at the end there.
Everything about it sucked.
Not everything about it sucked. We had 2 beautiful kids and some great friends.
Well, this was even before them. Like it started off like even before our first was born.
Yeah, for you it did. So then the question, and the reason I bring that up is to maybe I feel like the way that reel was postured was very much the way you probably would have been rooting for the guy back then. Like, yeah, it, like however guys say that, like they're not going to be like, you go, man, you go, my guy. I know that's not how that goes, but like, I think you would have been rooting for him. And now I think you've shifted because you've done inner work. And so
rooting for myself, like almost 20-year ago version of me,
the 20 year ago version of you would have been like, yeah, this guy knows what he's talking about. This is hard. I have to carry this on my own. I'm going to get shot down if I think all of the things that man was saying are things that you felt and believed. So I should ask, like, is that accurate?
I mean, at that time, I didn't want to say anything because it seemed like I shouldn't say every, but nearly every aspect of life sucked. Thinking back, I can't think of anything that's really cool about that time. That's probably a pretty terrible thing to say, but I mean, good things happened in that time, but I don't remember feeling good in that time. Yeah. Like when our son was born, like I was super stoked and excited to have a son and to be a dad, but that was outweighed by feelings of terror and inadequacy
and the stress,
and just the stress and just starting out in careers that like that career path took a quick turn a long time ago anyway, so thankfully.
What's interesting also is that the dog that you had, Buddy Brown Dog, he died on we had a miscarriage on a Friday. It's like Memorial Day weekend. And then on Saturday we had to put our dog down, and it was just like, just the worst weekend ever. And I feel like that weekend right there, it just really kind of encompasses, like, it's like, can we just get ahead here?
And those are, I mean, I remember thinking back about, like how you were. I mean, you were in a dark, hard spot.
Yeah.
That I couldn't relate to. So I didn't even know how to help, even if I did, I'm not, it was just a very, very difficult time.
So when I think about that, and when I think about this concept of like going about things alone, it feels such like what this man was saying to me felt like such a victim mentality. And you touched on this when you were talking about it at the beginning, where you're like, hey, if you don't have someone to talk to, then you need to work on that. Like, go create some relationships. Like, if your group of friends aren't like, they're not people you can confide in and talk in. And again, I'm going to insert a book here, Brendon Burchard's book, The Charge. Just read the one chapter on connection. And he talks about friendship. He talks about growth friends specifically and such. Like you should know what's going on in the lives around you of the people that you call friend and such. So, and you're right. I was definitely trying to make a lot of lemonade, and I hadn't done a lot of inner work also. And so I came out in a lot of unhealthy patterns as well, just to own that. Like, it's kind of cool actually in this moment, because I don't think we've talked about this, but to think about how much growth has taken place over, the last almost 2 decades.
Right.
It's pretty remarkable.
Because it's going to be 19 years here real soon?
Yeah.
As I always say, the best 19 years of your life.
They are. And when you say the best, I just wrote an article on this, and it really isn't like about, this year has to be success that looks success in the world's eyes. This year doesn't have to look like all the vacations, and it doesn't have to look like a perfect relationship in order for it to be a really great year. Like, usually those really hard years, and I feel like crying right now when I think about like Denver, like, oh my gosh. And I don't know that our Denver friends realized everything that we were going through. And so that's an interesting thing, is for us to say, those were our friends. And here we are saying, you're not supposed to go through it alone. I don't think that there were many people I actually felt comfortable with. I was embarrassed with a lot of the things that we were struggling with then. And there are things that we struggle with now and I'm sure this resonates with you, Conscious Investor. There are things where you're kind of like, is this even okay for me to talk about with my friend? Like, maybe I can talk about it and my spouse and I, we can talk about this, and we're going to work on this. But then when you think about that element, like us as a married couple, then we should have friends that we could talk to about some things.
Most people don't.
Yeah.
I mean, when Will was born, we had not been there. Well, we had just hit like the 1 year.
Yeah.
We'd only been there a year.
Yeah. We moved and got pregnant.
That was all your fault. Yeah. No, it was a very tricky time. So I didn't have any friends, and I certainly didn't have any like friendships that were beyond surface level. And when I talk to guys and sort of get into that whole topic, is most guys don't. Like, they might have lots of friends, but they don't have not even one really good friend where they could talk about like the deep, dark, scary stuff.
Okay, I'm going to say something, and this might be really surprising to the gentleman listening and to you. I think that there are most women who actually fall into this category. I think that it can be easy for women to talk about things in their lives, and that you might be hearing our guinea fowl in the back. It's like outside the studio door squawking away, so I apologize. But a lot of times women, they can talk about, and it's almost like glorified, like, oh, well, that's just how it is for moms. If you have since we're talking about Denver so much, right? Oh my gosh, we have a newborn. We've had pregnancy loss multiple times. Like, we experienced that, like all the heartache and stuff. And to be able to talk about that, there's a point to where you can actually talk about things, but it's not restorative, and it's not a point of healing, and it's not a point of connection. It's just saying it and letting it go out into the world like a vapor, but it actually, maybe the people around you, they don't have wisdom to pour into you, or they're just not available.
I think that's a good way of putting it. I'm going to steal that. Most people don't have relationships that are restorative. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to add, the relationships that most people have, men or women, are more of a convenient time passer.
Oh, Jeez.
It's like, oh, I want to get together because it's fun to get together.
That's what people do. If they're good people, like they have people they go and have over for dinner or go out and they do Friendsgivings together and they do everything together.
But they never talk about anything beyond surface level. I mean, I don't know what women talk about. I could enter a lot of jokes there.
You could enter a lot of jokes.
But like guys, they tend to talk about the same sort of things, like work or sports or hobbies that are even the hobbies most guys have are just convenient time passers. It's not something that they're actually really trying to grow in or improve on. It's just something that sort of helps them conveniently pass the time, and which is probably one of the reasons people get sucked into scrolling so much, because it's a whole lot easier to sit there on the couch scrolling through your phone than it is to go out to the garage and tinker on the car or, fiddle around in the shop, whatever guys do.
That's so true. And I'm going to point the finger at a few different directions and say, one, we've been talking about this, so I'll go this direction. I was thinking about Carrie was on my podcast, I think in 2021, and she was, mature. She has grandkids and such, and she was talking about what she calls sideline friends, where they're the friends that you have in that season when your kids are in sports together, and you're friends because you guys are all rooting for your kids and you're there at the practices or dropping off or pickup and you're doing all that together. So it's just friendship by association in that way. And you've recently shared with me about how it's like a lot of husbands have friends because, well, it's the wife's best friend's husband or, something. Yeah. And so
the husband tags along. Like the wives get together and the husband tags along.
The husband's,
willingly or reluctantly, it doesn't matter. Yeah. But the husband tags along.
And they're supposed to get along and be friends, but those aren't actually real necessarily. They could be, but they're not necessarily real friendships. So they're, to your point, like all this to say, evidence to your point of so many people have friendships of air quote friendships of convenience. Oh, we work together. Oh, it's my roommate's friend. We all hang out. Oh, it's my, spouse's, friend. So we get together. It's our kids' family's friends. So we're friends. So, and it's interesting when you start to make friends of your own, especially now that I've really been like just focusing on growth friends over the last several years. One of my friends recently, and we actually recently got together with she and her husband for coffee. And she was saying, she's like, yeah, if somebody can't go deep, if they can't have the conversation, I just don't have time. Like, I just don't have time for fake. And I'm like, and this is why we're friends.
Right. But that's the exact opposite of how most people handle it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, if they want to go deep, well, that's a little too scary, a little too risky, a little too uncomfortable. So I'm just going to sit here on the surface and talk about whatever sport. What season is it right now? Is it baseball season?
It's football
season.
And it's always hockey and it's always baseball season, it seems like.
I just handed in my man card. I don't know what sport it is right now. Oh, yeah, because Super Bowl's coming up. That happens.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I just took my man card back.
I don't know. I think I'm not quite sure about that. You have a man card, honey.
Sweet.
You're fine.
As long as I have that validation.
So I think it's interesting, kind of taking this full circle is if we have more going on in our head and we're doing it alone and we're afraid to talk about it, then even if we don't have the friends, then, okay, I need to go find a therapist or a counselor. I need to go find some professional support at the very least. If that's where I'm at, then like you are not a victim. And you can hear, I'm just like that just irritates me to no end. It's like, you're not a victim. Nobody said you have to be container and hold this all by yourself. Yeah. That's not how humans are created. We're created for connection and contribution. And so like, go schedule a phone call with a professional or go,
there's lots of good therapists out there. There's lots of good coaches out there, and don't discount coaches.
I would absolutely say coaches 100%. That's where I've found all my growth.
It's like a coach is the counselor who likes to smile and laugh.
Yeah. Yep. And can do the hard and ask the hard questions. Like I know when I'm in coaching sessions with clients, I mean, I'm asking hard questions that a lot of times clients will say, nobody has ever asked me that. And that's because nobody has been willing to ask those questions. And those are the questions that create movement in life. So, well, I think that honestly, the byproduct of this reel, I'm really excited that I have come full circle and that I know that you actually didn't agree with this person that you.
I agree with, and let's come back to the beginning here. So I agree with what this guy is saying because it's true.
I think it is true.
Like he is speaking what is actually happening in most men's hearts and minds. Where I can't get behind this guy is where he's basically like trying to get sympathy points for these guys. It's like you don't get sympathy points.
Yeah.
Like you're not doing anything. You're just holding it in. Like, no, you're not being tough. You're not being admirable because you're not. Some people would even say, well, I'm not burdening my family with my troubles. It's like, yeah, you actually are because it's coming out in every other area of your life.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm totally with you on that. I definitely agree. It's systemic. I agree that it is how the majority of men, and I am going to say women, I think a lot of women fall into this category because they're not willing to ask those deeper questions. And it's easier to go grab coffee and talk about all the comfortable things than it is to
kids. Everybody talks about their kids.
Yeah. Kids are, I don't know.
Kids are cool. Like I love our kids and that's wonderful, but there's more to our life than our kids. And whoever's listening out there, there's more to your life than your job or your kids.
Yeah.
Period. There's other topics of conversation too.
Yeah. So there you have it, Conscious Investor. We followed through. We wanted to make sure that we, living with integrity is important. And so we want to make sure that we didn't say we were going to talk about it and never circle back to it. But that's the real, that's the real also. And I just learned a lot about you and actually learned a little bit more about our time in Denver. I saw some things in a different way and that was really cool. So
I probably still need to work through that because I still look at that time and it still kind of makes me like tighten up inside.
Yeah, that means there's some work to do there. I think I'm with you.
I'm just going to hold it in and not tell anybody about it.
And carry it around because you don't know. I don't know if you'll get shot down if you talk about it.
I might get shot down.
So, hey, Conscious Investor, let us know. If you need support, it's pretty cool. Super Rad Steve and I, we've been working with one couple. So if you're a couple and you're trying to work through things, he didn't even know I was going to throw this out there. I didn't either, but it's something that we really love to support people in really elevating their life and their relationship. We've walked through a lot of fires together and we're still together. And I think we're better now than we were in our 20s.
Geez, I hope so.
Well, to be fair, I see on socials, and this isn't a slide, but I mean, like a lot of people get to this point in marriage and they part ways and they become empty nesters and they're like, okay, we did the kid thing together. So now we can part ways, have a happy rest of your life type thing.
We stuck it out until the kids moved out and peace out.
And we should probably record a conversation on there are times where, and I could get all teary-eyed, there are times where both of us have chosen to stick it out. And I'm throwing that in there, Conscious Investor, because statistically speaking, this time of year especially, there's a lot of pressure on people and on families and on relationships. And and the holidays make it seem like it has to be all this like romantic time and everything. And it might be the hardest time of your life. And Hallmark is throwing everything there, at you. And so I want to encourage you that if you're in one of those times where you just feel like you're having to stick it out, one, it sucks. Can we just... it sucks when you're in those times, but it can be productive.
I mean, it's hard to hear that when you're in the middle of some shitty situation, but it's those situations that are going to make you. We've all heard it before. Stick it out; it'll make you tougher and stronger in the end. But like, it's kind of a cliche saying because it's true. Like, as you've heard me say a million times, stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason. Cliches are cliches for a reason, and it's true. So, like, as long as you don't get stuck in the hurt, and stay there, like, the struggle is what makes. I'm not being very poetic in how I say that, but the struggle is what makes the end result so much better.
I mean, I wish that we could get where we need to go without the struggle, but I think that, again, this is a different conversation. So let us know if you want us to actually create an episode on this, but I'll try to be brief since we're running out of time here. But it's like the world wants us to believe that it truly is happily ever after. And the way God designed marriage was, no, I'm going to like use you guys to shape each other and to form each other into the next best version of yourselves. Like, it's going to be fun, and it's also good. There's going to be work, and there's going to be struggle, and we're humans. So there's some, y'all know I have a mouth. So, that has been a point of conflict for us. And I've had to learn a lot about that.
God said it's not good for man to be alone because again, doing what most guys do is they're going it alone.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what we're not supposed to do.
So as we wrap this up, I just want to say, if you are going through a difficult season and you are in harm's way, then please take care and protect yourself. Like, that is very different than what we're talking about, where you're working through things. So I want to make sure that you are in a safe environment. And if you guys need something, if you need some support, and you want to work with Steve and I, feel free. You can shoot an email, julie@julieholly.com, and just let us know, hey, and if it's just one of you right now and you're like, okay, wait, maybe if I can work with you guys, or just one of you, maybe your husband wants to work with Steve or something, or you want to work with me, like however that works. We'd love to support you. All right. We have gone on a little bit longer than usual on a Monday. We thank you for staying with us. We hope this served you well. And until next time, live into the fullness of your freedom.
Bye.